So over the last week or so, I've been learning Go and I've actually really been enjoying it. So in this video, I wanted to show you how you can write a HTML web scraper using Go and Collie framework. So Collie is the web scraping framework for Go, and it's what I've been using and I think it works really well. So I have my folder open on this side. Now there's two things I'm going to say before we start. The first one is that I'm still learning Go, so if I do anything wrong, just let me know in the comments so I can share it with everyone. And also I'm going to assume that you are at the point where you have Go installed and it works, and you can do Go version like this and it will give you your Go version back. So to start, we're going to do Go mod init, and I'm just going to write, what's this called? Go scraper-YouTube. There we go. So now we have our new Go mod file, and I'm going to create a scraper file to scraper can't type today.go. There we go. So we have our file here now. Now I'm going to go to the docs of Collie and we're going to do how to install. I'm going to copy the go get command, and that's just going to install everything that we need. This is just like doing pip install or npm install in Node and or Python. Next thing, I've got to get started. I'm just going to copy this, clear out my terminal, and we're going to open up our scraper.go file, and we'll just move this off to the other screen for now. There we go. Let's make this one bigger and we're ready. So the first part of every Go file is a package. So I'm going to turn this into package main, and I'm going to import in like this. We'll make this list, and we needed the Collie thing there. So you'll notice that there's an VS Code's giving me a squiggly red underline here, and that's because we've imported something that we haven't used. So if you'll notice, if I save this, it disappears. So yeah, we'll just that's just a warning of how that works. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to think about our data and what we're going to do it, what sort of data we're going to be getting. So on the website, which is just a test site, it's a demo site here, you can see we have some products. And there are pages as well, which we will deal with. So I'm going to get from each product from this page just the name, the price, and the image URL. So to start with, I'm going to create a struct, which is basically, I guess, kind of like a class, and this is going to hold the information in. So I'm going to do type item, and we're going to say this is a struct. I'm going to say we want a name, which is a string. You have to tell Go what the data type it is it's going to be expecting. Price, which is also going to be a string in this case, and then the image URL, and also a string as well. So what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to put these backticks afterwards, and what this is going to do is this is going to actually define the JSON field. So once we are at the end, we are actually going to output all of this data to a JSON file. So we're going to say JSON, and then that's going to be the name field like this. So we're just going to have this for each one. There we go. And I'll make this one price, and this one is image URL. So this is just going to help us when we're actually exporting this out to JSON at the end. So inside our main package here, we have to have a main function. This is the entry point to the program. So I'm going to say func main, and we're going to have our curly braces here. Now we are going to put everything inside our main function in this case, but this is just a function like any other language. So you could do it differently if you wanted to, but for simplicity, I'm going to do it this way. So as I said, we are using the Collie framework. So we need to say C is going to be equal to our collie.new collector, and this is going to give us the instance for our web scraper to work using Collie here. Now you can provide arguments into this. For example, you could have collie.allowed domains, which will basically only get information from the specific domains. We'll put that in for now, just because, although I don't think there's any chance of this going outside those domains. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the onHTML callback from Collie. So this is going to say whenever we find this HTML, this element on the page, we're going to run this code. So we're going to do c.onHTML, and we're going to say we'll put our CSS selector in there, and then we want to have our function, and I think my code will fill itself in here. There we go. So now we're saying that on the page, when we run it, anytime we find whatever this CSS selector is that we put in here, we're going to run this function with that element. And it's from within this that we can access the text on the page from each of the elements. So let's go to the page and then run our inspect tool. Let's move this over a little bit, make this a bit bigger. So if I try and hover over like the whole of the products, you can see we have this div class here, and we scroll down through it and we get these here, and then we've got somewhere in here there is a, there we go, div item prop item list. You can see how it's hovering. When I hover over it, it's highlighting all of the item, the whole of the item with all the information in. So this is a div with an item prop attribute here, item list element. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in here. So we're going to say div, and it was item prop, and these are all just CSS selectors. There we go. So now within this function here, anytime that we find this element on the page, we can do something with our h here. So let's just do h dot text for now, and let's print that out. So let's do fmt for formatting things, print ln, and let's put our h dot text in here, h dot text. There we go. You'll notice that I'm using the format package, and when I typed fmt here, it's put it into my imports up here, which is kind of handy. And we're being told that we're not using the item struct at the moment, and that's okay. We are okay with that. So let's go ahead and grab the whole URL for the page, and let's do c.visit. So we send our scraper there to start with and put the URL in. Let's save it, and then let's do go run dot to run the main package within our file here, and you can see that we have a load of empty space, but there's some text in here, which means it is working. So what we've done is we found these elements and we've just printed all the text that's within them, and it's not great, it's not what we want. But what we really want to do is want to get text from the child element. So this is the parent element, but we want all of this information here, which is within that. So if I hover over the name, you can see that we have an h2 class product title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of printing out text for the whole of the elements on this page, we're going to do child text. We're going to put our product title there, and it was an h2 tag. So I'm going to save that now, and let's run it again. Let's move this down a bit so it's less in the way, and we should get the titles for all of the products on that page. There we go. So there we've got them here, but you'll notice we've got these two blank ones at the bottom. So that means that we need to be more specific with our selector here. So let's go back to the page, and as I showed you, we had that div class col sm-9 that had all of the products in. I'm just going to put that in front of it here. So this is just sort of firming up the selectors that we're trying to get. So now if we run this again, we should only get the names. There we go, we get nothing back. So that's more precise, and that's going to work better for us in this case. So with this on HTML here, we've got the information that we wanted to get. So we need to actually do something with this, and we're going to use the struct that we created earlier. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say that our item is now going to be equal to our item struct, like this, and the name is going to be what we just found here. Let's copy that, let's paste that in. Now you'll notice that we actually need to have the price and the image URL as well. So let's go ahead and get those. I'm just going to put these in for a second so we know what we need to get. And let's go back to our page, find the price element. There it is, div class sale price, lost it a second, let's get it back. Div class sale price, let's copy that. And we'll do h.child text, because this is a child element from this one here that we've got, and we want to specify this is the element that we want the text from. And this one we're going to do child attribute. So you'll notice that this is for the text of it, and this is for an attribute within this element. So we need to give it two arguments, the selector and then the attribute name. So let's go back and find our image. Here it is. And we have this image tag, and we want the src, the source of the image. This should be nice and easy because within this there's only going to be one img image tag. So we can just say image and source like this. So now you can see that I'm being told that I'm not using my item. So let's just use it. Let's do fmt.print ln, which is print with a new line, and then print out the item that we've just kind of scraped out from this page. And let's run our code again, and we should get some nice neat data with all of this information that we asked for. There we go. You can see there's the title, the price, and the image URL for each one. Now we want to actually be able to, instead of just printing this out each time, is add this to a list or a slice in this case. So what we're going to do is above this, we're going to say our items is going to be, actually we need to do var items, and this is going to be a blank slice with our item in. This just means that we declared it, but we're not using it. So this is just saying this is our blank list, if you like, if you've come from another language. And we'll do here items.append, and you'll notice that when I hit enter, it fills this all in for me, and I can just add my item to it. So you need items append, then the slice that you're appending the item to, and the item itself that's going in. Once we're finished, we can come back down here, and let's just print everything out, just so we know that it's still working. This is all of our items, and let's run that now. There we go. So there's our nice list, I suppose, or a slice of all of the items that we have scraped so far. But there are different pages. There are multiple pages on this website. There's pagination that we also want to be able to deal with. Now, I've found that this framework does very well with that. So what we can do is we can just have another on HTML callback. So we can have C on HTML. We'll put our selector in there in a second. We'll get our code editor to fill in the rest for us, our function. And what we want now is the next page button here. So we want the selector for the next page, because as again, when it runs this and it finds this element on this page, it's going to run this code. So let's scroll down. There's the next page button, and it's just title next. So let's go ahead and put that in here, and we can just reference it like this. Again, this is a CSS selector. Title is equal to next. So when we find this element, we look at it here, this one here, you'll notice that we have an href attribute, but it's not an absolute URL. So we need to sort that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our next page is going to be equal to h dot the request. So we're looking for the request. Then the absolute URL of our h dot attribute. Where are you? There you go. For the href of this element here. So this is accessing the request, and we're getting the absolute URL for the href of the attribute of this element. And then we can just do c.visit. So we can say, hey, when you find this, you need to go to this page as well there. So this is just going to loop through all of these pages. Now, every time we get to one of these new pages, it's going to then run this function, this block of code, to extract all of the items again and add them to our list. Now, before I run this, I'm actually going to show you another callback, which is quite useful, I found. So we've got c.onRequest. And what that means is that when we actually make a new request to a URL with Collie, we can run this piece of code. And one thing that I like to do is just print it out to the terminal so we can see, and we can have, I believe it is r.request. No, it's r.url.string. So every time we make a new request, i.e. to the next page, this piece of code is going to be run, this function, and it's just going to print out the URL so we can just see where we are and what we're doing. So let's run this now. So we should have a nice URL pop up every time we go to the next page. You see that's finding it here in this function, and there's all of the products back that we found on this page, on all of these pages here. So what I like about this is that there's no looping through pages trying to get everything out. It's simply searching on the page for the URL, and if it's finding this next page button, we're turning it into a link and we are following it, which is much like what Scrapey does in Python in the framework there. The last thing that we want to do is actually save this data, and because we did this up here, we want to save it as a JSON file, and that is fortunately nice and easy as well. So we're not going to print the items out. We are going to go ahead and say that our content and the potential error that we may or may not get when we do this is JSON.Marshall. And you'll notice when I hit JSON there and selected Marshall, it's put up the encoding/JSON import in that we need, which is really handy. So now we need to do something with this potential error that we may or may not get back from this function, and also the content which we got here, and we just need to put items in here because this is what we're going to be doing with our JSON Marshal, which is going to encode it for us. So we can say if our error is not nil, so we're saying if there is an error, so if there is an error, we'll just format dot print. We'll just print it out to the screen. We won't bother with anything else in this instance. There we go. Now we just need to do something with our content, which is now going to be our nice formatted JSON object. So we're going to do os.writeFile, and again os, put it up here as an import. We will do the file name, so let's just call this products.json, and we also then need to give it the data, which is content, and we need to give it a file permission, and in Unix and Linux we'll just do 0644, which is, I think everybody can read it and write it. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But now I'm going to go ahead and run this again. Once it's done and been through, we're going to have a nice JSON file with all of the products stored in. Over here it's just popped up, and I'm just going to format this so we can see it, and there we go. This is all of the products on the all 9 pages with the name, price, and image URL. And you can see here's the key, and this is what we put into our item struct at the top. So far I've actually really enjoyed this. I thought this was a really fun learning experience. I hope you did as well. I found that this has been particularly useful. It does seem to have everything that you need in a web scraping framework. You can add in proxies, you can add in user agents, and all of that good stuff too. So if you're learning Go, I hope you've got something from this. If you're not and you're just curious, then maybe you should, but if you found it interesting or some way, that's great. Let me know in the comments below. Give this video a like if you want to see any more Go content. But if you just want to see more web scraping content, I think you're going to enjoy this video right here.